You know what else is fun? Getting a brand new beautiful white and blue hand towel and just destroying it with cocoa powder. It's okay, it's life, it's human. I'm human, everybody. Not all brownies are the same, but these are exceptionally different because instead of just using flour for the starchy base, half of the base of this brownie is sweet potato. And it lends a really decadent, moist interior while also making it extra syrupy sweet, which is just right for a dark chocolate brownie. Watch along and learn how to make it yourself. The first step to making these sweet potato brownies is to melt our butter in our chocolate. But if you've ever melted chocolate before on the stove, you know that it can be a little temperamental. It might seize up if it gets too warm. So my trick is to melt the butter in the saucepan and let it come to a bubble. And then I will dump the chocolate into the hot butter, remove it from the heat and let it sit for 5 minutes. Doing that allows the residual heat of the butter and the pan to delicately or gently melt the chocolate without really running the risk of causing the chocolate to seize up. So I have a half a cup of butter that I've put into my saucepan, and I'm gonna put it over the heat until it starts bubbling. And then I'm gonna add 2 cups of either semi-sweet or dark chocolate chips. I'm gonna give the chocolate chips a swirl in the butter, and then I'm gonna remove it from the heat and let it sit for 5 minutes. While my chocolate is melting, I'm going to combine all of my wet ingredients into this mixing bowl. The first thing I have is 1 cup of mashed cooked sweet potato. There's a chef's note in the recipe explaining my favorite way to roast sweet potatoes, but it takes a while. So if you have a faster way that you would rather use, feel free to do that. My way makes sure that there are extra sugars that are developed or brought out of the sweet potato, and so it makes it extra soft and sweet. So I've got 1 full cup of mashed cooked sweet potato, got 1 cup of sugar, and a half a cup of brown sugar. I'm also gonna add 4 eggs, and 1/2 a teaspoon of kosher salt, and 2½ teaspoons of vanilla extract. All right, I'm just gonna whisk this all together until it's nice and homogeneous and the sugars are dissolved. There's a syrupy sweet quality to sweet potatoes that makes it really conducive to a brownie recipe. It amplifies kind of the richness of the chocolate and the sweetness of the chocolate, but also lends this like subtle, unique sweetness that I think can really be compared to something like really anything syrupy, like a maple syrup or a molasses. It's like a really rich, mouth-filling sweetness. And I think it makes these brownies really tasty. Additionally, it also makes them extra tender because you're not relying on a ton of flour to thicken the batter. You're actually relying on the starches that are already present in the sweet potato. It's been 5 minutes, and so you'll see that most of your chocolate has already melted, and there will be a couple bits kind of sticking out of the butter, and all we need to do is whisk it until it's smooth and homogeneous and it looks like a really silky ganache. Now that the chocolate is fully melted, I'm gonna add it to my liquid ingredients and whisk it until it's fully combined. Brownie recipes can be really diverse. And brownie recipes that exclusively use cocoa to lend a chocolate flavor are gonna be chewier, really delicious, but that's a different kind of brownie than this brownie. This brownie uses melted chocolate, which is gonna make it extra fudgy and gooey, which for a sweet potato brownie is really, really tasty. Now that I have all of my wet ingredients combined, I'm gonna sift in 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour and 1/2 a cup of cocoa powder. Sifting just helps you prevent getting any lumps in your batter. I picked a mixing bowl that is almost too small, which is entirely my error, so don't make that mistake at home and use a really big mixing bowl. I think it's just gonna fit, but it's gonna be a close call. Oh, I'm making a mess. I'm making a huge mess. You know, I'm not perfect. So, I'm willing to admit defeat, which I'm having to do right now because it doesn't fit in this bowl. Okay, so here's a bigger mixing bowl. The world just got a lot easier. I am covered in what feels like head to toe cocoa powder. That's okay. This whole process ends with fresh baked brownies. So what more What more could I want? You want to whisk pretty heartily because there are going to be pockets of dry ingredients that want to stick to the bottom of the bowl. And so you really have to scoop. Also, as the flour starts to get hydrated and the chocolate starts to cool off, the batter is going to get really thick. So it just takes some elbow grease. But I promise you have it in you, and the brownies will be worth it. Oh, this batter is so good. The batter is done, and here I have a 9x13, which I have lined with some parchment paper. This is just gonna make it so much easier to get the brownies out of the pan. I don't know about you, but I've spent way too many minutes of my life trying to get a brownie out of an unlined baking pan, and I'm not interested in doing that anymore. So, using parchment paper, it's a good investment. Just do it for yourself, because you're worth it. Here's the batter, and I'm going to use a spatula to transfer all the stuff from this bowl into my baking dish. My oven is preheated to 325 degrees, and so I'm gonna pop this in until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. You might get a couple moist crumbs that come with it, but that's just because it's brownies and that's normal. And this should take about 35 minutes. I just checked on my brownies with a toothpick and it came out clean, and it was about 2 or 3 minutes before the 35-minute mark. So just be sure to check your brownies probably after 30 minutes and see how they're doing. The difference there might be because sweet potatoes are gonna vary in moisture levels, and so my guess is that this sweet potato just had a little bit less moisture than maybe the sweet potato used when this recipe was developed. These brownies are now out. I'm gonna let them sit to the side until they are completely cool. You don't wanna cut them before they're cool or they'll kind of be a mess. My brownies have cooled completely, and now I'm gonna dust them with powdered sugar before cutting and enjoying. Because these are sweet potato brownies, I feel justified in cutting them a little bit larger than I would a normal brownie. As you can see, the inside of this brownie is super soft and still kind of moist, and I get to give it a shot. This brownie is super chocolatey, but it's also really soft and a little fudgy. In my opinion, it's kind of like the best of both worlds in terms of the two most popular brownie methods. You get the really soft, cakey, and a little bit chewy texture from the cocoa powder, but you're also getting this really gentle, soft, delicate crumb from the melted chocolate and butter and the sweet potato. You can't taste the sweet potato at all, so it doesn't taste like sweet potato. It just gives it a little added moisture and density that works well. If you like this video, like and subscribe below so you don't miss any in the future. And if you make these, let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you.